Welcome in to another episode of the My Two Bits Gators Football Podcast. And I am one of your hosts, Ben, joined as always by your other host, Mr. Randy. Randy, first of all, how's your voice? I feel like I probably didn't have enough honey because my voice is a little hoarse still. Not gonna lie, a lot of yelling on Saturday night.
Yes, it was, man. It was a great time. Voice is feeling much better. Got a good bit of honey and lemon on Sunday, and yeah, we're back at it, ready to scream some more this Saturday.
I like it. I like it. Good stuff. Yeah, I did not do enough throat rehab apparently because I was feeling better yesterday, but I noticed today it was a little off. Not quite there all the way.
I got you.
So before we get into this, I got to ask you a question, and that is because this occurred to me kind of over the weekend here. You know, we've had a lot of very, very low moments during this season, and this was obviously a very high one. What feeling to you is more significant? The low after a really bad loss or the high after a really good win? Because it's hard for me if I'm thinking about it, right? It's not necessarily just the easiest thing to just go, oh, yeah, it's this one, right? Because they're both very significant feelings, right? So what's more significant to you?
Wow. Heck of a curveball to start the show. I would say in lieu of, let's look at the sum total. What's happened this year? The fires, the media, just everything, the noise. This win, huge. Signature win in the swamp, regardless of LSU's talent and how they were as a squad, ranked number 22 in the nation. A win like this, the way that this was done, extremely more significant because I think this has a way of catching fire quickly. And I'm going to go with the win Saturday night in this fashion, in this way.
All right. I dig it. And I think you make a good case there. I do.
For the record, where are you at?
So, well, you mentioned the talent. I think it's worth noting LSU's 8th on the team talent composite to our 12th. So they're a more talented team on paper than we are.
You're supposed to be, for sure.
Just saying. So, you know, regardless of their rank or how they're playing right now or whatever else on paper, that's a more talented team. And that's something that we have not done well against in Napier's tenure thus far. It might be the first time we've beat a team that was more talented. I'd have to go check that. But it's definitely one of the very few times, if not the only. So just interesting. That's tough. I was pretty low after Texas A&M. I'm not going to lie. That one was not a fun time. And when I look back at some of the times when I've been low, just ever, right? Not just this season, but just in general, there have been some rough moments. Losing games you're not supposed to lose, things of that nature, or taking losses that you just didn't think you were going to take in ways you didn't think you were going to take them, right? That can be tough, but yeah, the euphoria of a win that is a really solid win is pretty tough to beat because I can counteract that with, if we're going to talk any win, right? Just like we're talking any loss, can talk national title wins too. So I'll say the win. I'll say the win takes it. But it can be close at times. It can be close at times. So, I really like the points you made about this one, and I think we'll get into some of those as we go. So, to that end, let's get things started here in the way we normally would. So, little aside there to start the pod, but I wanted to ask that question because I felt it was super relevant after a heck of a win this weekend. Really, really great to see that and to be there with you. Really enjoyed that. Regardless of the state of my voice this evening. So we'll get things started here, as always, with our intro, our mission, our accuracy disclaimer, our vision, and our agenda. So as always, our mission is to provide factual analysis of all things Florida Gator football. Our accuracy disclaimer is that our information will always be accurate to the best of our possible ability. We will cite our sources whenever we use them, and all statistical data comes from either ESPN or stats.ncaa.org, and recruiting data comes from on3.com. Our vision is to have unfiltered conversation around the product on the field, as well as recruiting and overall coaching decisions. Our analysis will be based on review of film, and while we will express opinion, that opinion should always be based in some form of fact. We will also evaluate strategy and tactics and discuss our observation of player personnel decisions, as well as on the field execution. So, as always, we will get things started off agenda-wise tonight with the Oh My section. Plenty of choices for that section this evening, as opposed to what we were working with last week. Then we will break down the offense in the Chomp segment. Then take a look at the defense in Gator Bait. We will then have our visor throw segment, which may be a little smaller than normal tonight. It will be for me, I'll tell you that, which is, of course, where we talk about our complaints from the game, things we would like to see done differently or improve. We'll then talk a little recruiting, hatchlings, a little positive news there, which is nice for a change this season. We will then, of course, talk about the culture segment in Pride of the Sunshine. Going to be really hard to have a better segment than that, I think, tonight. And we will then potentially get to the worst segment of the evening with the officiating review in Move Back, You Suck. And boy, did they suck. And last but not least, we will wrap things up, do a little state of the program and where we think we go from here to close out the season and play Keep It or Pitch It, of course, for this week's game with the Rebels. Lastly, we'll do a very brief review of the Sims this week, some odd results in the Sims, and I'll take us through that very quickly. Those being the Sims from NCAA 25 for any of those who are new listeners potentially this evening. So with that, let's get things started. Give me a rundown. You are limited to 3. I will remind you, you can only do 3. Give me your home eyes from this weekend's game, buddy.
Is that the rules of engagement disclaimer? Hey,
yes.
3.
You are capped, sir.
I am capped. Fair enough. Well played, Trebek. Okay, here we go. I agree with you. A lot of good ones to throw out there, right? This is kind of a good problem to have, and you're like, I got to narrow it down to 3. So, in no particular order, well, sort of a particular order. The first one I'm going to give to our man DJ. So, I told Ben I wouldn't cheat. Okay.
You can cheat a little. It's okay.
I'll just say this. 1st and 10, the second quarter, DJ to Badger, pump fake. And the one thing that I loved about this ball, in addition to the 2 other balls that he threw this way, is the fact that it was a great route. It went from a slant to a go. He shifted back out for the touchdown. And the thing about this throw, which I would reference the other, I'll just go ahead and say it, the first quarter, the fourth quarter with 14-11 to go, Lagway, play action, gets pressured, steps up, off one leg, takes a hit, and delivers a dime to Badger again down to the 1-yard line. Jacoby finished off with a 1-yard touchdown run. The first pass, I'll just say, he's not just your friendly neighborhood DJ. He's your friendly neighborhood realtor because he's all about location of the football. Couldn't have placed it better. Right? Couldn't have placed it better. On the back shoulder to Badger, the back shoulder to DJ, or DK, take your pick. And then in that fourth quarter, on one leg, mind you, stepping up, feeling the pressure, sensing it, getting rid of the ball, flicking the ball. The ball comes off his wrist so effortless. I always go back to the Samford game when you said, when he throws the ball deep, it's like magic. I'm very much a believer in magic. So the play that he made to step up in the pocket and deliver an absolute dime was phenomenal. Badger takes it down to the 1. Jacoby finishes it off. 2 phenomenal throws there. Okay, and my last one, I know I sort of combined those, but I was kind of excited. The last one, I'll say this. Jaden Baugh ran the ball, especially that 55-yard touchdown run. And here's the unique thing about it. I thought it was going to be bust or blown up because DJ turned the opposite way. Instead of a handoff, it became a pitch. It looked like LSU was able to sniff it out. There was a backer there or 2 that could have made a tackle. But I tell you what, shout out to Najee Harris. Shout out Hayden Hansen.
Yes.
Shout out to Badger for blocking on the edge to cover those bodies and free ball up to seal the victory. Okay, I won't cheat. I'll keep it right there, B. I'll keep it right there. How about you, B?
Wow, that you really didn't cheat. Like you didn't stretch that at all. That's very good. I'm impressed.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you. I'm
impressed.
trying. I'm trying.
Very good. Very good. I like it. I have not cheated either, for the record. I've kept mine to 3 as well. So there's a theme here. All right. So we're gonna go with a theme. So we got the DJ pass to Badger, and it's not the theme that you had. It's my own theme. So just bear with me here. DJ pass to Badger. Which one, right? The answer is the one where he slid up into the pocket that you mentioned to avoid the rush and then threw an absolute dot to Badger for what, again, could have been 6, probably should have been 6, but was once again tackled at the 1-yard line. It's a nasty little theme they've developed on these. I'm thankful Badger actually got a touchdown in this game. He should have like 8 on the season. He's got 3. It's ridiculous. But regardless, that of course set up Jacoby for the 1-yard TD, as you mentioned. Again, DJ just continues to be incredibly impressive. Not even for a freshman. Forget for a freshman. Just in general, right? The poise to feel the rush, slide up the pocket, and then deliver that in the face of pressure because there was a linebacker coming through the B gap there that got in his face right as he was throwing that. It's pure and simple good enough for Sundays. That's what we're talking about here. And this is a 19-year-old in his 4th collegiate start. Get out of here. Get out of here. What are you doing out there? Oh, and by the way, he had a, messed up hamstring still that he's playing on. I mean, it's getting to be a little ridiculous, to be honest with you. I'm not complaining, mind you, but it's getting to be a little ridiculous. His ability is just very impressive. Obviously, we still need a little more consistency at times. A few reads here and there that were, not perfect in this game. He got a little lucky not to throw at least one pick. But then again, there were also some other things that hindered him as well that we'll talk about later. So that's my number 1. Number 2, the sack by James. Which one, right? See the theme developing here?
Nice. Nice. Love it.
The answer is his second sack and the team's 6th sack, which is just ridiculous, and it wasn't their last. And for me, it was the biggest of them all because LSU was in a position there at that point in the game where, yes, they were down 11, but they still could have gotten down there and scored either a TD or a field goal and kept the game competitive, right? It wasn't over yet. And that sack kind of put it over, right? They would have needed a miracle after that sack. It really kind of ended their hope of things. It ran it down to the 2-minute timeout at that point. And James absolutely blew up the running back who was in pass pro on that play. He literally chucked him off with one arm if you watch that replay, and then got right into Nussmeier's face and made a terrific sack right before Caleb Banks came thundering through as well and fell in on top of him. Just outstanding stuff from the front 7 in the whole second half. We'll talk about it more later, obviously, when we do a defensive review. But man, phenomenal play by Shamar there. Really happy I get to call him out. Haven't had maybe as many opportunities as I'd like to call Shamar out. We're going to get several in this game, especially in that second half. Last but not least, I don't have another one of which one for this because I had to call out Jaden Baugh for his TD run as you did. Phenomenal run. Absolutely phenomenal run. So I got to say this. If you're a Gator fan and you have not been to the Swamp in a big game and a play like that happens, I have to tell you, I don't even know how to describe it because it's not my first time, fortunately for me, that has happened in a big game and a play like that has exploded. But words like electric and thunderous don't even do it justice. They're not good. They're not good enough adjectives. The best way I know how to say it is the place just takes on a life of its own in a moment like that, and the sound waves shake the walls. They almost become visible somehow. It's insane. It's absolutely crazy. And if you haven't experienced it, find a way. That's all I know to say because it is just, it's like nothing else. It really is. It's just incredible. But getting back to the play. Love the slight misdirection at the snap by DJ, kind of just hinting with his body to the right before he pitched back to the left. And then as you mentioned, outstanding blocking. And I'm going to call out Najee specifically because he kicked about 15 yards out to the left and then just crushed the guy he was blocking. And then a nasty cut nasty cut by Jaden about 10 yards downfield before he just walked by their safety with his speed and took it all the way to the house. Now, safety did take a bad angle, but I think it's because he underestimated how fast Jaden was, quite frankly.
Oh yeah, yeah, he
Um,
did.
I think he kind of went, he faster than I thought. He really got fooled on that one. Amazing play, and even more so at an incredible spot in the game. To me, that play is a definition of this segment. That is the pinnacle of oh my. That's why we created this. Honestly, is for a play like that. So I couldn't not have it in here. That was just the cat's meow for that particular or for this particular segment for sure. So just phenomenal play. Want to see more obviously of those anytime we can get them. So with that, we will close out oh my, move on to the chomp segment here and talk a little offense. So interesting game. I think you'll find a trend here as we go through and we talk about some of this stuff that a lot of the stats in this game don't necessarily tell the story of how this game ended up. There are stats that are not at all what you'd call conducive to this, and we'll talk to that, I think, several times throughout this. But we'll get started with our typical stats to start here. So Lagway's QB rating, only a 92.79. So for those who don't know, we use the NFL QB rating. We think it's a more consistent rating to use. It goes from 0 to 158.3, and anything over 100 is good. So this is a little shy of 100. It really wasn't what we'd call in the necessarily good standard. And that's because, again, his percentage was 50% completion. Wasn't as many yards per attempt as he typically had. He didn't throw it deep as often, right? So I think because of that, that's why you saw that deterioration. And of course, only the one TD pass, right? No picks, but only the one TD pass. So I think that's the reason why you're seeing this number be a little lower than what we've seen it at times for him. And it just doesn't tell the story, right, of the game, as I mentioned, as many of the stats won't. Now, one that does is the yards per carry we had on offense. When you take out the team numbers, which was, of course, DJ kneeling on the ball 3 times, we had 8.29 yards per carry. Whoa.
Oh my.
Whoa, indeed. Oh my. That is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Now, this is not certainly a vaunted LSU defense. However, they had played better this year than they did in a couple of years previous. Certainly nothing to write home about, but still a little better. And 8.29 yards per carry is ridiculous. That is a really big number. So let's get into it. Offense was very interesting in this game because it was very much boom or bust, right? You see that in the numbers. Now, we were limited by some very challenging officiating, as has already been made mentioned, and we will discuss that more later. But there were still plenty of things that we did to limit ourselves as well. So I'm not going to put all the blame on the black and whites there. We continue to make predictable decisions more often than not. If we pass on first down and gain nothing or minimal yards, it is almost a certainty that we will run on second down. We had this conversation sitting in the stands. Regardless of what the defense is showing us, too, by the way. They can have 9 in the box. Here come that run. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. It continues to be what frustrates me with Napier's scheme over and over and over again. The lack of ability to adapt, whether it's on the fly, at the half, or, ever. It's just so frustrating to see the pre-planned, preset things, as we've talked about, of course, ad nauseum for those who have been listening all along. Okay, so enough of that. Having said that about the negatives, let's focus on the things that we did do well, right? We did many good things in this game, many positives. 11 explosive plays out of only 43 plays run. That's over 25% of our plays going for explosive yardage. That's absurd. So when I mentioned boom or bust, yeah, it was really boom or bust, like big time. Additionally, we gave up 0 sacks to a team with an incredibly high pressure rate. Now, granted, they didn't have a high sack rate, but nonetheless, we have a very less than mobile quarterback back there with a hurt leg, and this team is getting up an incredibly high pressure rate against quarterbacks, and we do not allow a single sack. Very impressive play from the O-line in their pass blocking. And of course, as we already mentioned, in their run blocking, as yards per carry was just through the roof, right? So even without Ball's big run, it still would have been over 5 yards per carry, which is extremely good, obviously, in an SEC game, right? You're not going to complain about north of 5 yards per carry. It would have been mid fives. So very, very strong. O-line again, and the running backs again, the yards after contact from these guys is just continues to be phenomenal, right? They just continue to produce, and that part of the offense is again producing at a high level. Yet again, another week. Now the total rushing yards here wasn't high because we didn't have that many rushes. There were 14 in the whole game, right? Which is very low. Only carry it 14 times. But once again, the yards per carry extremely high. So even though only 14 yards, we still broke 100 yards rushing even with 14 carries. So very, very impressive stuff, even despite the fact that the overall numbers may not look that high when you look at it, in the typical frame of stats you would look at, being total yards or total rush yards or whatever. So that's really my take on offense. It's really kind of, like I said, a very unique game from a stat standpoint, but also some interesting takeaways when you look at some of the more specific metrics like yards per carry, like yards per play, things of that nature. So with that, I will turn it over to you. What you got for offense, bud?
Keeping it simple this week, huh? Nice and simple, short and sweet. All right, so a couple great call outs. I like it. I'm gonna take a different approach on some of these, but overall the same. Limited. I'll start off by my best Yoda impression. Limited by hamstring, is he? Yeah. One leg playing on, is he? Okay, sure. If he's going to do that on one leg, give me that. Give me that every Saturday.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
He was one-dimensional. Allegedly, according to Napier, direct quote, he was roughly 85% for the game. Okay, sure. Yeah, we'll take that. I agree with you. Still very vanilla-esque as far as the offense goes. We saw a lot of run plays on second down and second long, kind of trying to figure out, okay, do we take a shot? How many times did you turn to me and say, now we need to take a shot?
How many times we do it?
Oh, well, I mean, for the reference, not a shot of liquor, a shot downfield, people. Shot downfield.
Right. Just so we're clear. Yes, we were referring to that. And how many of those times did we actually do it? Because I remember the number.
I think that's a big goose egg, B.
No, we did it one time.
Okay,
to pass the Badger.
Fine.
One time.
Okay.
One time.
See, but there you go. Very predictable, right? I swear, I will never forget. What's his name? Dawson, Miami's D coordinator, after that first game of the season, saying we predicted 7 out of their first 10 plays. Unreal. Anyways, so there's that. Shout out to DeLuca Toyota, right? Toyota makes the car. DeLuca makes the difference. Hopefully they'll sponsor us one day. I'll tell you what, DJ makes the difference. The offense could still be vanilla-esque, but the difference maker is DJ Lagway, 100%. Great stat, 11 explosive plays out of 43 plays. Hello. They're huge difference there. 0 sacks. I had a similar shout out to you. 0 sacks to the O-line. Pass protection. Phenomenal. Another thing I'd like to call out for the offense, scoring first and then scoring 14 points in the final quarter to tuck this game away. Here's the thing. The offensive stats are really not that impressive. And people are kind of going to scratch their heads and go, well, what do you mean? And that's the funny thing about this game. You said very peculiar, right? That's the bottom line about this game. If you look at it is the holiday season, right, B? So I'm going to reference a quote here, and just for the holiday season, the box score sits on a throne of lies. I'll just keep it at that. Look at the. Okay, good. Look at the difference, right? LSU 25 first downs, Florida 13. Net rushing yards, LSU $128, Florida on 13. Net passing yards, LSU at 262, Florida 226. Total yards, LSU somewhere around 390, Florida 339. Plays, LSU 92, 92?
Yep.
92 to Florida's 43.
Yep.
Okay. What the and then the last one I think is which is really unbelievable is TOP, time of possession, when it was all said and done, 41 minutes to 18 minutes respectively, 41-43 to 18-17.
Yep.
In the first quarter, 11 minutes to 4 minutes, and in the fourth quarter, 11:49 to 3:11. All these are in favor of LSU.
Yep.
All of them. So you look at the box score, to your point, B, and you're like, oh, yeah, LSU wins this game hands down. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Great shout out to Montrell. He's back. First game suited up in a few weeks. Looked good. We B and I saw him on the sidelines just itching to come in. Just doing everything he can do to get in the game. First carry, takes it in. Great 10-yard gain. But I tell you what, Jacoby and Jaden almost sounds like a segment on ESPN. Jacoby and Jaden, for as young as they are, they have just taken the reins on that back position, and we haven't skipped a beat. We have not skipped a beat. If anything, the backfield is in very good hands. So that's awesome. The other thing is not as much bubble and tunnel.
Yes.
LSU did it. LSU did, but when DJ is at quarterback, not as much bubble screen, tunnel screen, little dink here, little dip there. Big difference. We're seeing that vertical passing game come through again, even though off of. And B, you had a great point before the game because of which leg the hamstring was on, so it didn't affect the plant leg, right?
Right.
Big
Huge
difference there.
thing there.
Huge. And then the last thing I'll call out: average starting field position for Florida. B, I'm not sure if you saw this in the Sports Illustrated article, but UF started from their own 38.
Interesting.
38. So very good use of that field, shortening the field. When you shorten the field, you can score in quick chunks. And well, clearly we did that because from a time of possession standpoint, it took me longer to eat my dinner. So outside of that, there you go. That's all I got for a Chom segment. Either way, regardless of the box score being on the throne of lies, regardless of everything else that we were outscored on, at the end of the day, Gators win, signature win, big win in the swamp.
Question on that. I did not see that article. Did you have LSU's average starting field position?
Oh, I did. You
What
want to take
was
a
it?
guess?
24.
Close, my friend. 20.
Wow, interesting. That's a huge gap. I mean, 18 yards is a massive gap.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting. Now I wonder what ours was after the penalties. Again, we'll
Yeah.
talk later. All
Yeah,
right.
no.
Well, no, really good summary there. I like some of the points there. I actually have some of those to discuss later in regards to the play count and the time of possession. I've got those I wanted to bring up later.
Right.
But we'll get there for sure. So I'll reiterate some of that. But yeah, no, I like it. I think it's a really good like you said, kind of additional take to the fact that the box score just doesn't tell the story here at all. So to that end, let's continue that theme in a way and talk a little Gator bait.
Yeah, let's do it. I tell you what, man, the game started off kind of shaky, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nussmeier on the side. Okay, there's a first down. Nussmeier over the middle. Okay, there's no what's going on here? We know he slings the ball. We know he's top 5 in the nation, right? In passing, but come on, seriously? So here are the numbers. Nussmeier's QBR 80.27, 80.27. So as B mentioned, say again.
I said not great.
Not great, as B mentioned. We're looking for 100 up, and 80.27. Yeah, not so good. Not so good there. Definitely not. Yards per carry 4.74, and it is important to note that yardage per carry is without sack yardage because there was a lot of it. But
Yes,
yeah, 4.74, right? So, defensive stats, not impressive in terms of yardage and plays given up. Again, I'm going to go with the same theme that I had for the Chomp segment. The box score sits on the throne of lies, okay? Real simple. Because let me break this down a little further. The third down conversion percentage, it was really tough for us to get off the field, as you saw. They allowed 13 for 24 third downs, 54.2%. Okay. Next thing,
Yeah.
snaps, 92 snaps. Time of possession, 41 minutes, 43 seconds. Wow. Wow.
Yep.
And here's my thinking is listen to Billy. We want to play complementary football, both sides of the ball. And I'm like, okay, well, defense is going to be gassed. Okay. It's going to be absolute gas. We're going to go into the fourth quarter, and we're going to lose a close one because we're not going to be able to have the energy. We're not going to be able to have the momentum. We're not going to be able to get push up front. Boy, was I wrong, and I'm glad for it. I'll tell you what, this defense, the whole bend, not break mentality, we've talked about that before, but boy, they were more flexible than I thought. They just bent and bent, and for whatever reason, fourth quarter, it was like Frankenstein's monster. He just came alive. The other thing that was really tough to watch is 165 yak. That means stands for yards after catch.
Nice stat. I don't know where you pulled
Right?
that one from, but nice.
55 more, ESPN, 55 more than Florida. Not something you feel good about, right? Average starting field position, though, LSU, their own 20. As you mentioned earlier, B, you were wondering about that. 20. And here's the other thing, too. Crawshaw did not have a great game. Okay.
No, not his best. Not his
right.
best.
He didn't punt to his 48.2, 47.9 average. He punted closer to about 42 and a half yards. Right. So that was a little bit off. But at the end of the day, the defense was able to make key plays, certain plays that really set the tone. And especially with Dijon Johnson, DJ, as far as what he did, I love the first defensive stance where I tell you what, they went for it on fourth down and Dijon just snuck it out. And I thought that was a really, really awesome play just to set the tone for the defense.
Yep.
And that's exactly what they needed in this game.
That almost made my own eyes. It was right up there.
B, I'm right there with you. Right there with you. Because, I mean, for Dijon to sniff that out and have the discipline that he did, and then the tackling technique that he used to stuff it and make it a TFL, tackle for loss, beautiful. Beautiful. Another thing I want to call out on the defense, you made a comment of him earlier, and I'll make a comment because this is the first game all season he has led the defense in tackling.
Yep.
All right. Number 6 on the jersey, Shamar James, 11 total tackles, 5 solos, 6 assisted, 2 tackles for loss of 20 yards, 2 sacks.
Yep.
2 sacks. Big sacks coming out of linebacker spot. Number 2 on the team, Jack Pyburn, 8 total tackles. Tyreek Sapp, 8 total tackles. 4 tackles for loss, 1 sack. Miles Graham,
four TFLs. 4 TFLs
yes.
for Sapp. That's huge.
Yes.
That is huge.
Yes. No doubt. Miles Graham, 8 tackles. Trequez Bridges, 7 tackles, playing in a very unique role, switching between the quarterback position. Jaden Robinson, 7 tackles, right? Yep. Phenomenal play across the board. George Gums, Caleb Banks, folks, total tackles for loss, 11. Total yardage on that, 65. Get out of here. Get out of here.
Yep.
And not to mention quarterback hits, 6.
Yeah,
Nussmeier was just rattled because B. I don't know if you remember the comment I made to you at the end of the second quarter, almost going into halftime.
Yeah,
I don't like Nussmeier's jersey; it's way too clean.
I do remember it. I do, and it's true. It's true,
right?
It was. And then
somebody heard us. And then the last thing I'll say is LSU really struggled to finish drive. Yes, defense played lights out. They came alive in the fourth quarter, but LSU did have some struggles on some drives. And so I was looking at the drive chart as put together by the UAA. LSU had several drives. So 13-play drive, 6 minutes, 45 seconds, missed field goal. That was the opening drive, right? Second quarter, 15 plays, 7 minutes, 44 seconds, field goal. Right, another 15-play drive in the third quarter, 8 minutes, 40 seconds, field goal. Now, the reason why I point those 3 out is because those are 43 plays of their 92, 22 minutes, 29 seconds of game time, 6 points. Good job, defense.
Yeah.
Good job.
No, for sure. For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Some really good points there. Some really nice stats. Some really good points. And interesting stats there because I think those are a little more telling. Some of the ones that we talked about, right? The 7 sacks, the tackles for
Yeah.
loss. But then again, you flip it around and the yards per catch, right? Or the yards after catch, excuse me. Way too
Yes.
many yards after catch, right? I mean, we don't have a missed tackles number. We can never really get our hands on that. Unfortunately, we'd like to, but it's just not something that gets produced on a regular basis. Every once in a while, we can catch a week where we find it in an article, but it's just not something that gets published. So, we counted a lot, though. We counted a lot. Definitely double digits, which is not what you want to see. So, better than last week against Texas, certainly, but not
Oh
still
yeah.
not great. So anyway, just some interesting things that were kind of contradictory there. So it's an interesting game to look at the defense. First, I want to say something. We do not compare notes before. We do not share notes before this pod. For those that
Oh
don't
yeah.
already know that, who might be listening.
Right.
Um, it's really funny because we end up saying some very similar stuff. I literally have in my notes, first half was all bend don't break, and you said the exact same thing. So it's just funny. We very much come to think alike in certain things on this. So I just find that humorous sometimes when I see exactly the same points from time to time. But anyway,
No
moving
doubt.
along. So
No
first
doubt.
half for sure was all bend don't break, except for obviously the one TD where we did break. Right, we had a coverage break. Denson got shook by a fake, and then Castell could not recover in time to come over and help clean that up. And I'm actually not going to put that on Castell as I might normally, but but I don't think that one was on him. That was on Sharif. He got cooked on that one, and it cost us. And a heck of a throw by Nussmeyer on that one with some pressure in his face. Credit where credit's due. That was a nice
Oh, it
ball.
was. Yeah.
That was a really nice ball. But aside from that play, really, as Randy said, we were giving up a lot, but it didn't result in a lot of points, right? They scored 3 points other than that touchdown, right? Um, but ultimately, there were too many missed assignments and missed tackles, as I mentioned, in the first half to call it anything but average, I would say, for the defense. But then the team came out of halftime, and after that first drive, where I was a little disappointed, it was still somewhat disjointed. It seemed like some things maybe looked like they were starting to gel a little better, but then other things, they gave up a 3rd and 12 on a run, right? And then we missed some tackles on a couple of runs after that. But then all of a sudden it tightened, right? It tightened. And even though we gave up a field goal that first drive, it was a field goal on a 4th and 24. So all of a sudden, okay, we're getting there, right? And then it got much better for the rest of the game, right? Only resulting in 3 more points, right? The rest of the way after giving up a field goal in the first drive. And particularly that front 7 is who really stepped their play up, because I'll actually give credit to the back 4 really for most of this whole game. Considering their injuries, they played really well, but I'll get to that in a minute. The best illustration of the second half play would be, as you mentioned, Mr. Shamar James. He was seemingly slow to read plays a little bit, off his coverage a little bit, right? Not blown coverage, but just a little not quite where he needed to be. And he missed some tackles, quite frankly, in the first half. He missed a couple. Then he comes out of halftime and basically did none of that. He was all over everything, making plays, batting down passes, making tackles, certainly, and then, of course, adding both of his sacks in the second half. Phenomenal second half by Shamar. One of the best halves I've seen him play as a Gator, quite frankly. He was all over the place in the second half. Looked like an absolute animal out there. That's the kind of play I want to see from Shamar James. And frankly, I'm not exactly sure where it's been for a lot of this season. It's really what I expected to see out of him. I thought he was going to be a dominant linebacker in this league this year. He hasn't been. I'm sorry to say. He's been fine most of the time. But it's been a little less than what I expected, quite frankly. I expected more like what we saw in the second half of this game, and I was certainly glad to see it. I hope we see more of it in the last 2 games of the season. So, now, despite some of the missed coverages, as I mentioned, hats off to a depleted secondary here, right? You mentioned Bridges. A lot of credit to Dijon as well. Phenomenal play from the corners. And even the safeties, honestly. Most of the completions that came in the game went to the running backs or the tight end, as we know. Good grief to that tight end there to eat our lunch. And the secondary, frankly, did pretty well for taking away the receivers for most of the game. Honestly, the receivers did not have a ton of yards, not even a ton of catches, right? We really did a good job of taking the receivers away, and that's not something that's necessarily that easy to do against LSU. I mean, they complete passes to their receivers. They do. It's not like they just complete them to their tight ends and their running backs. They do that as well, but it's not all they do. So hats off, honestly. That was not an easy assignment. This is a very pass happy team, and they took a lot of that away. And I think it's actually what led to a lot of the sacks in the second half, because Nussmeier, I think, felt like he needed to look deeper more consistently, and it wasn't there. And then you had coverage sacks. Bill even mentioned it in the press conference. A lot of those sacks came from coverage, and I agree with him, because Nussmeier was holding the ball a lot in the second half, looking for something that just wasn't there. And that comes from great coverage. So kudos. Really well done. Last point I'll make. D-line, D-line, D-line. Come and get some flowers, because my goodness, what a performance in the second half. So, got this from Pro Football Focus. The rotation of the D-line in this game. So how does a D-line survive a 92 snap game? The answer is rotation. We talked about this before the season even started. We said we weren't sure that the talent across the D-line was necessarily better than what we had certainly as starters last year, right? We lost Princely. Obviously, we'll see him next week. We lost, we lost some talent up front there that I'm not sure we replaced in terms of overall starting talent, right? And I would still agree with that. However, we added depth and depth and depth. We rotated 14 players on our defensive line during this game. Are you kidding me? 14 players played at one position or another in our D line.
Yes,
10
sir.
of them graded out at a 63 or higher per Pro Football Focus. For those that do not know, Pro Football's grades, a 60 is what it is considered neutral. Anything above a 60 is plus. 10 of them were 63 or higher in this game. That means 10 were plus, right? They did something to add advantage to Florida in the game. Now, marginal different degrees, but I will tell you that two of the highest rated players in this game in the 80s, please, which is phenomenal play, were on the defensive line. So outstanding. I mean, round of applause. It was so good, especially in the second half. And I will give a huge shout out to Caleb Banks. Phenomenal performance. He talked about it after the game. He felt like LSU got him last year, felt like he really got blocked up in that game last year, did not have an impact. And boy, did he did he change that this game. Phenomenal push up the middle. Obviously, the fumble forced and recovered on the same play. The sack he had as well. I mean, just what a game. What a game from Caleb. Absolutely huge difference maker in this game. And obviously, of course, the sacks in general, but I'm calling him out specifically because I thought he was next level in this game for his play, in particular in the middle of that line. But really, the D line as a whole all deserve just a ton of credit. They really made an impactful difference in this game, again, especially in that second half. So, like you said, we were talking about Nussmeier just wasn't dirtied up enough. Well, that obviously changed in the second half. And for those that don't know, LSU had 6 sacks allowed on the season coming into this game, and we got them for 7. Wow. That's impressive stuff. So with that, we'll close out defense and we will move on to visor throw. I don't have a lot here. I'm gonna be honest. This is going to be the nicest visor throw you're ever going to see from me, probably. I'm very happy with the outcome of this game. I'm very happy with the state of the program at the moment, anyway. Considering where things are, I still stand by what I said after Texas A&M. I'm still in that boat. I still don't think Napier is the correct person to lead this forward. But hey, the decision's been made. This is where we are, and that's where we're going to go from here. And I think there are things he does well, as we have talked about. But I'm staying my course on that. My mind's not going to just be changed because we have a win or because things are looking sunnier. That's not going to do it for me, because offensive inconsistencies, here's my visor throw, continue to be the theme. I can say I actually did like a play call or two in this game. There were a couple things with some routes that we did. We did a really nice little split route out of a double wide receiver set at the bottom of the route. One broke in, one broke out at the same time. Really nice little concept. Something I don't recall seeing before out of Napier, which, hey, little variety. Okay, I liked it. And it turned into a solid game for Badger up the sideline on and out. I liked that, but it's not consistent enough. And it's still not taking advantage consistently of what you have at your disposal. Tank was in the game for how many snaps? 5, maybe?
Not enough.
I mean, you've got all this speed and you don't use it. I don't understand. Just again, as I said before, you've got to be able to adapt. You've got to be willing to audible when it makes sense. And you have to have more wrinkles than what we see on film week in and week out when we look at this stuff. Again, I mentioned one. Hey, that was great. There's just got to be more. There can't be one or two or none when we look at this stuff every week. It's just not enough, and it's not going to be enough to get it to the level that we want to see. Frankly, I don't care how good DJ is. It's going to hold us back, and that's what I don't want to continue to see, and that's where I continue to sit, and that's it, and that's all it is. That's all I got. Short and sweet, to the point, and really, other than that, I don't have any gripes, because other than that, it was really good. So, what do you got for visor throw?
Fair enough. Thanks for sticking to your guns, being consistent, and not getting the Pfizer too dirty. That's good.
Yes,
That's
sir.
good, B.
Yes, sir.
I've got a few.
Okay, I'm interested.
First is 7 penalties for 55 yards. Some of that I'll defer to the Zebras.
Yeah.
Outside of that, we're tied top 50 for fewest penalties per game with 5.6 per game. This is one of the higher ones that we've had. Now, again, there was a lot of inconsistency in the first quarter, which where a lot of this came from. But either way, seeing 7 penalties out of this team now is kind of like an eyebrow raise for me. But it is what it is.
Yeah, and I will say, going back, I watched almost all of these that were flagged, and I can't necessarily say other than maybe one that I totally disagree with the flag that was thrown. This game for me was a lot more about the flags that weren't thrown than the ones that were.
Fair enough. Yeah, absolutely. Second visor throw is going to be LSU's third down completion.
Well said.
We know they were good at third down. We know Nussmeier slinging the crap out of the ball. Again, 50 or 32, 3,400 yards, whatever he has on the season. Top 5 in the nation. But again, we were trying to hold him closer to that 40% mark, but 54.2. And that's one thing that I was wary of, literally and figuratively, is the fact of the longer defense stays on the field, the more tired. Hopefully we can sub in some fresh bodies. Hopefully we can keep this momentum going. Hopefully they can play at a high level. They proved me wrong. Again, happy to be proved wrong when the results are like this. We'll take it. And then the last one's going to be what you ended with, B, actually, is going to be, I call it the evolution or lack thereof of the offense.
Yep.
I've heard a couple of analysts made comparisons to Cristobal in Miami with Ward and basically what happened at the Georgia Tech game. And the comment was made, paraphrasing, something to the effect of, as good as Cam Ward is, it does not cover up Cristobal's coaching. So, to your point, DJ, amazing talent, magic, all those things, great kid, great head on his shoulders. We still need the offense to evolve and move. Now, I will say a couple things is I'm glad when DJ's in the game, we don't see a lot of screens and bubbles and tunnels. It's a good thing. But at the end of the day, we still need it to be way more than what it actually is. And just like you, I agree, we're probably never going to see it. But to use that speed, it would be really nice to see 4 wide receivers out there just basically daring the defense to pick your poison. But that's all I got. That's all I got for visor throw.
I think that's all really fair. I think those are super good points. I like to call out about the third downs, even though I do kind of feel like, in a way, at least to a degree, that LSU was smart in a lot of the ways that they called that stuff and probably took advantage of some of the weaknesses. But having said
Yeah.
that, after you get burned by the same thing 3 or 4 times, where's the adjustment to do
Hey,
something
where
about it?
can you adjust?
I
Exactly.
mean, how many first down throws did the tight end catch for them? Like, my goodness, it was
Oh
ridiculous
yeah.
at some points. And then
Mason Taylor only had 4.
finally, Shamar stops one late in the game, right, and bats it away. But like, how it took way too long. I mean, somebody got to be manning him up. Like, it was just getting ridiculous. So, I mean, it's a valid point. It's a valid point. There's again adjustments that should have been made sooner, right? So yeah, no, I think it's a good point. All right, let's move it on. Let's talk a little recruiting. What do you got?
Man,
Hatchlings. Good
what don't I
stuff for
have?
once. I'm excited to
Yeah,
talk recruiting.
what
It's
don't I
amazing.
have?
It's amazing.
Hey man, right now it's provocative. It's going to get a lot of Gator people going. So let's get into it. Um, we're up from 11 prospects to 14, and we rank now.
I only saw 13.
In,
What's the difference here?
Interesting. Let me show you what I have.
Okay.
And nationally went from 32 to 27. And for those of you wondering, the stats I got were from On Three. On
Just
Three.
check this earlier. Did we get another one after I checked it? I'm going to go there right now. You keep talking. I'm going to check it.
Please be check it. We everyone, y'all know we care about the facts. We care about the material being brought to you. So there you go. Tramel Jones, 4-star quarterback out of Mandarin, right here up the road from us. Big flip from FSU. Big flip. He's a little short on the shorter side, 6 foot, 195 pounds. Was dealing with a foot injury earlier this year, but either way, 4-star prospect, and that is a huge deal, especially when you look at the upcoming class. Stefan Shivers, 4-star defensive lineman out of Tennessee. Big flip from Georgia, especially like this one. To get a flip from Georgia, a flip from FSU, sure we'll take, but for Georgia, even great. This kid's out of Tennessee, okay? Defensive lineman. Get this, folks. Get look at these measurements. 6'4" and a half, 6'5", 380 pounds. What? That's a child? And I can say that because he's, 17, 18 years old. What in the world? Anyways, big flip from Georgia. The only thing I can think there, I mean, I know Dez is significantly bigger, but still, I just think Dez Watson might think that, right?
That's what it is. I didn't have him in my list. It came through after I made my notes. It's Shivers. That's the difference.
There you go, B.
So you are 100% correct, sir. We have 14 commits, ranked 27th.
Winner, chicken tetrazzini dinner. All right. I love a couple things. I love Vernell Brown III social media post about we're not done yet, right? Smiley face emoji and the graph stock up emoji. In other words, hey, I'm recruiting too. Okay. As you all know, Vernell Brown's going to be a legacy player, just like Ben Hanks. His father played here. Vernell's father played here, right? Another one I've got for you, Danielle Pierre-Louis, 3-star O lineman, right? 6'4", 292 pounds, right? He's out of Semel Ridge High School up there in Loxahatchee. So this is really unique. Committed to FSU over a month ago, all right? Fairly strong commitment to FSU. Well, I'll tell you what, Jonathan DeCoster is Haitian. Daniel Pierre-Louis, Haitian. Building that relationship, right? Familiar roots. And so there's a strong, very strong probability we can get Daniel Pierre-Louis to flip. And if that's the case, that'd be the second leaving FSU within a week. Second decommit. Phenomenal. And then 5-star cornerback and Ohio State commit Naeem Offord will be in attendance in the game. So he was there. Offord was the number 11 player in the 2025 class, ranked number 3 in the quarterback position. Jamie French. Yep. So this is unique. French is Tramel Jones' teammate over there in Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
He was originally a Texas commit. Long time ago. I'll tell you how long ago. I did one of his games, officiated one of his games against Bradford earlier this year in August, and he wore a compression sleeve on his arm, and it was a Texas Longhorn compression sleeve. So number 24 player in the 25 class, number 5 wide receiver. I love his post on social media when referring to why Florida still has a chance. GJ Lagway, and then side-eye emoji. And then lastly, LSU commit 5-star cornerback DJ Pickett was there for the game.
He was not. He was not.
Oh, he didn't show.
He did not, and we will get into why that was and why it may have been a good thing, but he did not. There was some conflicting reports on that. He was supposed to.
Okay, never mind. All right, thanks for the correction. But anyways,
no worries.
Number 9 player in the class, number 2 cornerback, right? And Pickett, of course, a Florida native, just like French and just like Tramel Jones. That's it. Sorry, a little bit more extended version this time because of all the action going on. What do you got?
It's good. So I have most of the same stuff. Obviously, the biggest news being Tramel. Actually, did you mention the kicker? I might have missed it if you did because I was looking stuff up.
You know what? We might have mentioned the kicker last week, but yeah, number 1 rated kicker in the nation, Noel.
Yep, absolutely. I don't know if that had dropped last week when we did this or not. I'm not sure. It may have come through after. I can't recall. So yes, we did flip the number 1 kicker out of Arkansas. Only technically a 3-star, however, number 1 kicker. So very important.
Yes.
So that is a significant get in terms of that. Obviously, Tramel is the big news, right? Flipping that 4-star QB commit, right? Adding depth to the QB room. Mertz is going to be gone. We need more depth in the room. Love Aiden, but I don't think anybody wants him to be the backup right now. Based on what we've seen, it's just calling it what it is, right? It's not meant to be disrespectful. It's just talking about the talent that we've evaluated and what we've seen on film. It's not personal. So very, very excited to have Tramel be part of the class now. You mentioned the 5 stars at the game. There were supposed to be 5 stars at the game, including Pickett. Ended up being 4. Still a significant recruiting show put on, obviously. And what a game to have them there for, to have the swamp rocking like that, to have that win. Oh huge. Yeah. We've been waiting on something like that to happen from a recruiting standpoint. And then obviously, whether I like the decision or not, having Billy solidified as the coach, having these kids know that there is NIL money committed from the boosters to the program, all these things matter now, right? They're significant. They matter. It's going to go a long way in recruiting. It's going to go a long way in the transfer portal. These things are going to matter. I'm very interested to see what happens. It's funny. The way I felt about recruiting 3 weeks ago versus the way I feel about it now could not be. I was just thinking our recruiting class was shot. And now I'm hype about our recruiting class. It's remarkable. And nothing's really changed so far. I mean, a couple of little things here. Well, Tramel's not a little thing, but it has definitely, made some improvement here since the last time we really talked about it. But it is liable to pop here in the next month. I mean, it could go from something not significant really to a big time class out of nowhere. It could really flip. So the Pickett news, as I mentioned, he was absolutely supposed to be there. He canceled at the last minute and went to Georgia. Before you think that's a terrible thing, here's something to note. Pickett is committed to LSU. So he was going to come to a Florida game, yes, but against the team he was committed to. That's not necessarily the best situation, right? He's going to see coaches and players and guys he has relationships with on the other side of the field. That's not necessarily good for our recruiting. So he did not cancel the visit. He rescheduled it. So in theory, he is still coming. Now, sometimes those reschedules don't work out. But if he does still come, that's actually a great sign that when he comes, it's going to be a more serious visit than this one might have originally been. Now, if he doesn't come, okay, fine, it didn't play. But I'm interested to see, especially, like I said, with everything going on around the program right now and the direction things are going, if he does not indeed show up for another game or just an official visit that isn't a game. So very interested to see how that plays out, because I think actually if that does happen, it would be a better scenario than it would have been if he came to this one. So that's your DJ Pickett news. That broke right after the game on 3. I don't remember who from On 3, but somebody from On 3 broke that, and I read it and found it to be very interesting. I was disappointed at first, but then when I read it, I was like, oh, maybe not such a bad thing. So that's all I got recruiting wise. Like you said, we are 27th now, up 5 spots just from a week ago already. Yeah, we're climbing. So be very interested to see what happens as we continue forward. And still only 14 commits. For those that don't know, the top end classes in this class are north of 20. So we are
Oh yeah.
moving in the right direction. We add high quality players for another 7 or 8 cats. All of a sudden, that class is going to look way better than it does right now. So let's keep the mojo going. I like where it's headed. All of a sudden, could really turn a corner here. Okay,
Yep.
let's talk Proud of Sunshine. Um, I'm really excited to talk about this segment. I'm not going to get too long winded about it, but we talk about it every week, but this week it really has special emphasis for me because I don't know if I believe in such a thing as what I would call a culture win, right? The culture of the team got you the win. Because football at the end of the day is about the play on the field, right? It's about how you execute. It's about the talent that you have, right? X's and O's, Jimmy's and Joe's, right? All these sayings that are there. You don't talk about, heart being the thing that propelled you to a victory. Maybe it was what got you over the top, but not that won you the entire game. But this team might make me start believing in such a thing as a culture-based win. Um, this is absolutely unbelievable performance from an effort standpoint. So this is where I have the call-outs that you talked about earlier. Consider, as you mentioned, that LSU ran 92 plays to UF's 43. Obviously, that's more than double and just one shy of 50 more plays than we had on offense. Just let that sink in. Additionally, as you mentioned as well, time of possession, 41 minutes, 43 seconds to 18 minutes and 17 seconds. That's basically 3/4 to 1/4. Just shy of 3/4 of play to 1/4 of play, they possess the ball to us. It's wild. It's wild. And last but not least, you also mentioned this in the defensive segment, LSU converted 13 of 24 third downs for 54.2%, a stat we talked about being really important for both teams, right? They did it well. We did not do it well. We only converted 33%, and yet we won by double digits. According to both the Sims and what we saw in every simulation I ran last week, that was not supposed to be possible. And yet we won convincingly. And for those that don't know, and we haven't been listening, those Sims have not been wrong about the stats that we have pulled out. I mean, it's been spot on every week. Whatever I pulled out of that as far as the stat to watch for has pretty much been right across the board. Not this week. We bucked the trend. So if you don't tell me that doesn't come from heart and effort and just fight from this team, I don't know what else to attribute it to. I really don't. This team got punched and punched and punched and punched, right? Time and time again. 13 for 24 on fourth down. Almost 3/4 of possession for that team. They're just out there getting beat up, specifically the defense, right? But even when the offense was out there and it wasn't working, they just kept fighting for it all night long. They just, quit isn't even the right word. Like, they didn't even stop giving it 1,000%. It's nothing short of amazing. It really is nothing short of amazing. Randy and I talked about it as the game was going along, that the stats simply didn't reflect it. We talked about it tonight. And we're just sitting there trying to figure it out in the stands near the end of the game. We're like, how is this the score? We're looking at third downs. We're looking at first downs. Number of first downs was like 2.5 to 1 in favor of LSU. Like, how are they winning this game? It goes against logic. And that's where you just have to go to. Clearly, one team wanted it way more. And that's like a thing that I kind of hate saying, honestly. It goes against the study of film and things that we do on this analysis that we break down. But I don't have something else that I can point to here, really. There aren't key stats. Yes, the explosives, yes, the sacks, right? There are some things we can pull out. But at the end of the day, these numbers were overwhelming in LSU's favor, and we only had one turnover. So it's still hard to justify how some of those numbers get you to a double-digit win, aside from one team just giving it every ounce they had, and the other team not. And that's really what it looked like when you were there watching it. I'm not saying LSU didn't care, but they weren't fighting the same way. They just weren't. They weren't clawing for every inch, and we were. And that was evident. And that goes back to the way this team has been since that first bye week. Before that first bye week, I don't know, it's a little dicey. But after that first bye week, man, hands down. So that's what I got. I know I said I wouldn't get long-winded, and I kind of did anyway, but that's my pride of the sunshine. What do you got, bud?
I don't care that you did. I loved it. Well done. Well said. Um, and yeah, we did do a lot of talking in the stands as far as what is going on. Look at the third down discrepancy. Look at the time of possession discrepancy. I mean, one can say that yardage discrepancy, but moreover, third down and time of possession discrepancy alone, you're looking at just going, yeah, there's no way the score is what the score is. And that's, I think, that is the X factor, as Coach Napier would like to say. The culture and what he's been trying to get this team to buy into over the past few years, and trying to mold and shape and the discipline and everything else that comes with that. We really saw those attributes on display in this game. So a couple things I'll lead with. The last 10 games against Louisiana State University, we were 3-7, including a 5-game losing streak between 2019 and 2023, which is the longest of the series. Okay. We're averaging about 20.7 points in the series. We scored 27.
Mm-hmm.
An absolute signature win in the swamp. I didn't believe in as many signature wins, but you're thinking, okay, what are we doing, right? We're sitting at 4-5. A win gets us to 5-5, and then we've got Ole Miss and FSU. We know what FSU is going through, and Ole Miss just had their big signature win a couple of weeks ago against Georgia, so they're riding on high. But at the end of the day, really interesting to see what. And I'll tell you, the swamp was absolutely alive. So if that swamp didn't act as a 12th man to infuse some energy into that team, I don't know what did, because they played absolutely possessed, especially that defense in the fourth quarter. And when you look at the way things broke down, just indicative of the scoring. I mean, just look at the scoring, right? In the first quarter, you have Florida up 7-0. Into the second quarter, LSU puts 10 on the board. We put 3. So, okay, great. It's tied up. It's 10-10 going into the half. Third quarter, a field goal. Great, 13-13. All of a sudden, we put up 14 in the fourth to their 3. That's how you shut out an SEC game, a rivalry game.
Yep.
And they did that. And to your point, B, it would not have been anything outside of culture and grit and guts and playing for your next for that man right next to you. And that's what he's tried to instill, and that's what they did tonight. I think people are still stunned that players are this bought in amidst all the adversity, all the noise, all the hot seats, all the talk, transfer portal, NIL. Is he going to be around, not be around, regardless of the outcome that a lot of people might not like? Strickland backing Napier meant stability of the program, and then we're seeing it in the recruiting channels come through. And all of that only works with one thing: a strong backbone of a culture. And the last thing I'll say about Pride of the Sunshine, shout out to Coach Napier. He made good on his promise. He did the gritty after the game. It needs work, but he did the gritty for the team. So kudos to you, Coach.
Yeah, I like that. I saw that come up on I think it was McRae's Instagram. I didn't watch that, but I saw it on a video on Facebook. One thing I will say in regards to that, I've heard a few different things over the past few weeks when the wins weren't necessarily there. You know, that oh, this doesn't matter and it's not that big a deal, and yeah, there's plenty of players that like to play for their coach, and I've heard that several different places that it just wasn't that significant. Well, first of all, I think it goes beyond them just liking to play for their coach. It's not just as simple as that. Again, I've said all along, we've said all along that this is a culture that he's built that is second to none, in my opinion. I mean, he's really done a very, very good job of putting this together, not only with how he's instilled these things to the team, but also the group he's put together to make that work, right? That's important, and that does really matter. We've talked about that for a long time. But beyond that, I posted yesterday on Facebook under the Two Bits channel that Herb Street called it out on X, that there is actually, he was actually calling out about how impressed he was with the culture that he was seeing because of how much fight the team had, considering exactly what you just said, that they're 4-5 and that a lot of teams could have fallen apart. And this was before the game was over. And he was saying, regardless of the outcome, he's like, I don't know whether they're going to win or lose, but man, they're playing impressively hard considering. I thought that was really cool to see that get some recognition at a national level like that, because you don't always see it that way. So just, it is more important than just the players liking to play for their coach. It just is. It matters. And I'm not saying it's always enough, and I'm not saying it's always the thing that's going to get you over the hump or win you games. I think it did here, but I don't think that's always going to be the case, and it does take more, right? It's not the only piece. We've talked about this. It's a great piece, but it's not the only piece. But man, it is really strong, and in this particular group, it's as strong as I've ever seen. So really love seeing it, and really hope it continues to be a binding factor for the teams we have going forward, this team and those to come. So with that, I'll close out, move on to move back. You suck. And boy, did they. Here we go. I'm going to go through it as quickly as I can. I don't have that much to get to. I kind of made the point earlier. I don't think that the calls were necessarily wrong in most cases. There might have been one hold that I don't agree with on Florida. I believe it was on Barber. It's questionable to call it, but it wasn't totally egregious. However, the one-sided nature of the flags was not okay. Multiple calls that were very clear that, again, were being flagged on Florida, not incorrectly, but flagged nonetheless. And it was not balanced in its calls on the other side. Multiple holding calls. I mean, multiple holding calls. I went back and watched on the video just to make sure that my eyes weren't deceiving me in the stadium. They were not. Multiple holding calls against LSU that were not flagged. At least 3 that were very, very clear, including one where LSU ran for a first down, which was super not okay. But multiple holding that should have been flagged and were not. At least once, quite possibly twice, where the LSU tackle left the line before the snap. You mentioned that during the game. Went back and checked that. You were correct. Yes, false start penalties should have been flagged. Were not. Now, they got a couple false starts called on them, but there should have been more. And lastly, and these were the worst ones, 2 absolutely blatantly missed PI calls. One against DK on the first series of the game, and the other one, which was super egregious. The DK one wasn't good. He was contacted way before the ball got there, and I don't understand how you let him play through the receiver like that, but perhaps it was a bad angle to see that he was actually playing through the receiver. But the hold on Badger to prevent him from being able to run down the ball was just egregious, and I have no idea how you do not flag that. I really don't know how you don't flag either one, but that one in particular was just completely ridiculous. Not balanced. Not balanced. Again, the flags that were thrown were not wrong for the most part, but the ones that weren't thrown, plentiful. We've talked about this multiple times, that we don't want to see officiating cost a game. That's why we do this. 1, because Randy does officiating for high school, so he has a unique perspective. It's part of the reason we do this. 2, because we feel that every piece of the game should be analyzed, not just the play, but also the officiating. It's not because we're trying to call out refs, right? So or just call them out when they're bad for Florida. We will call them out regardless of their performance, or praise them for it when it's good, which we have done. It's important to look at this because it needs to be considered regardless of the situation. And again, that's why I went back and looked at the ones, because I thought a lot of the ones that were being flagged on us during the game were wrong. They weren't. They were correct. But when I went back and looked, those ones that I thought should have been flagged, yeah, they definitely should have. So really tough to see it so one-sided. And again, it was one of those situations where these things can affect the outcome of a game. Again, fortunately, it didn't here, but man, it was starting to lean like it might have at one point, and I was getting real hot. I was losing my mind a little bit. So fortunately, that's not what happened. I feel like we've flirted with that edge a couple times now this season, and again, fortunately, it hasn't mattered. But the man, when it does, I that is something I just cannot abide. So it's really tough for me when those go that way. But regardless, that's my thoughts. Where are you at on the officials for this particular game?
Yeah, I think I'm right there. Jeff Heeser, not a bad referee. Unlike Mr. Hendricks, one of the most egregious in all the SEC, but it is what it is. To your point, B, discrepancies. Florida, 7 penalties, 55 yards. I mentioned that earlier. What I did not mention, LSU, 3 penalties, 25 yards. That's it. And yeah, to your point, when we went back and looked at it, sure, was there a face mask on TJ? Okay, get that. All right, Barber. Okay, moving. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure exactly what you saw, but I saw that were not called, that were in my belief fairly obvious. Okay, and I think it mainly happened at the right tackle position. 3 false starts where that guy moved very early, well before the ball was snapped. And I was talking to it about it with another official. He said, well, they kind of snapped the ball a little bit slow. I'm like, okay, and he still got a jump start off the line. So tell me I'm wrong. No, you're not. Okay. So we'll take that. Outside of that, the DPI, especially when you have a receiver with one hand extended and you have a DB or corner, right, with 2 hands on that receiver's one hand, pulling and restricting. I don't know how you don't call that. And, as a deep wing and you're 7 yards off the play, I don't know how you see 2 hands versus one. That is by definition an advantage, positional advantage. Should have been called, should not. And it wasn't. So again, to your point, you never want to see calls like that affect the outcome. Thank goodness they didn't need him to. But either way, it still shocks me for the SEC, for the amount of money, for the media money, for everything else that's on the line, the officiating out of all the conferences. And I get it, stronger, bigger, faster conference. The officiating, there is still much to be improved. I'll just leave it at that.
Yep. Fair enough. Fair enough. I think that's a good assessment. So we will leave it at that and we'll move on. Let's wrap this thing up and take it home here. Closing thoughts. What do you got? Where are you at for where we're at with the team and where we go from here?
Yeah, man. B, we're 5-5, 2 games to go. The season is almost over. Tumultuous season, coin flippy of a season. It's really interesting to see what's transpired this year. I think the main thing that's taken up the noise is just hot seat and Napier. You say hot seat and you see Napier, that essentially has just, been a resounding voice over this entire season. And yet we've managed 5-5. 2 games in there, we lost that we probably should have won. Should we be at, 7-3? Maybe, maybe not. But at the end of the day, I love the fight, to your point, the culture, it's there. The compete, it's there. The no quit, it's there. The injury bug. B, I really didn't anticipate us being this injured this year.
No, definitely not.
Absolutely unreal. Injury bug, please go away. If I say it 3 times, is it the opposite of the other guy, Beetlejuice? Like, do they go away, not appear? So yeah, if we can get the injury bug to go away, and that's the thing, strength and conditioning seems to be working because we're finishing games in a relatively strong fashion.
No, again, absolutely. Nobody looks tired out there,
right? Again, outside of a twisted field and a sick field in Jacksonville, and outside of some bang plays, and some freakish plays with an ACL, but at the end of the day, really proud of what these guys have been able to do to construct, deconstruct, reconstruct, to try to save this season. If this was a signature win in the swamp, And if they can be the change factors, be the change agents, and do something special next week, I don't know what we call it, B. I don't know what we call it. But back-to-back wins like that in the swamp would set this season on fire, and then finish it off at Doak Campbell, where they're 1-9, would be absolutely phenomenal. What a way! I mean, last year we know what happened: 5 losses in a row. Not the way we wanted to finish the year. Could you imagine finishing the year in a win-win-win fashion to put us above 500? I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse. I'm trying to be realistic, but the momentum is awesome. The energy is awesome. The belief is there. Let's hope they can respond well to the media, respond well to this big signature win, and put together another complete game this coming Saturday against Ole Miss, play complementary football, and really let that talent and energy and culture shine. That's what I hope for.
I love it. I love everything about what you just said. It's really good stuff. Some interesting points there. First of all, you said 1-9. Isn't FSU 1-10 after they lost the bye week?
I'm sorry.
Sorry,
wow.
I can't help it. Can't help
Got
it.
him.
For those that haven't seen that meme, I highly suggest Googling that. It's hilarious. But moving along. No, I really good takeaways there. And it really would be something to finish this out. So first of all, for anybody who bet that over under at the beginning of the season at 4.5, congratulations. Lock that one up. But the other really nice thing about this win is, for those who remember last season, we lost 5 in a row to close the year. I was in play this year. Maybe not 5 in a row because Florida State, man, if we lost that one, whoo-wee. But though if we didn't get DJ back, it was possibly in play. But it was definitely in play to lose 4 of these, right? I mean, that was in play, and yes. This team didn't let that happen. That's over now. That is not going to happen. No matter what goes down, these last 2, we are not losing the last 5 games of this season. And we're probably going to go 2-3, which is what we kind of called for, right? We called for 2-3 in these last 5. And I think that's very, frankly, acceptable, considering what kind of schedule it was. Now, listen, maybe we go 3-2, like you just mentioned. That's on the table too, potentially. I'm not calling for it. I think Ole Miss is playing really well right now. They're coming off a bye. Yet another team coming off a bye. So if you're counting scoring at home, that's Georgia coming off a bye. Yes, we were too, but Georgia coming off a bye, Texas coming off a bye, Ole Miss coming off a bye. Of our last 5 opponents, 3 of them coming off byes. Jeez Louise. Tough. You thought the schedule was hard enough, right? Then you throw in the byes. It's ridiculous. Anyway, really, really not the easiest thing in the world. Having said that, though, I don't think it's a stretch to call this the biggest win of Napier's tenure. Obviously, it was against a ranked team and a rival, which Billy hasn't had many of those wins, if any. No, he has. I'm kidding. So that's certainly a big deal. But not just because of the game itself. It was more critical because of the timing, right? Coming off the Texas loss, but also with the announcement of Strickland and knowing what they're trying to build with the portal and with recruiting, with the NIL dollars, right? Everything we've talked about. This was just massive. I mean, this was huge. Talk about a momentum swing like you talked about. Honestly, I'm not sure if it even matters. I mean, it matters. It matters if we win. I don't know that it matters that much if we lose next week. We're kind of in a win-win scenario, which is great, right? It's a great place to be going in. I mean, if we get our doors blown off, it's not good. But like if we have a competitive game and don't win, it's kind of what everybody's expecting. So it's okay. We're still beat up. We're still hurt. They're still, the quote better team. So as long as we beat Florida State and play competitively with Ole Miss, which I think we will, and again, we might win. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see. It's a really interesting spot that this game put this team in. And I'm curious to see where it goes. I'm curious to see what happens with the bowl. There's a lot of stuff that's interesting. So to that end, we'll see what happens. But it's a really intriguing place that this put this team in. This game put this team in, and a really fun place, quite frankly, a much more fun place than I thought we would be. So with that, let's get into a little keep it or pitch it here. I went 0-3. This is what happens when the box score looks ugly.
Yeah,
or
man.
doesn't fit the narrative. And you went 1-2, so this didn't go well, but we'll run it down real quick anyway.
Yep.
LSU ranked 74th in the nation in rush defense at 150.8 yards per game. Florida ranked 72nd at 151 yards per game, right? Just about even. We said Florida was going to get at least 170. We thought they were going to need to run. We thought they would run well. They did run well. We just didn't have the ball enough to run enough to hit that number. We both kept it. We were, of course, both wrong. Next, LSU ranks fourth in the nation, allowing 0.67 sacks per game. We know where this is going. Florida's
Whoa.
averaging 2.22 sacks per game. We put the number a little high at 3. We thought it was a little high at 3. We both pitched that, thinking they would only get 2, and of course, we got 7. Uh,
Right.
so, yeah, we got that wrong also. Here's where you got me on this one and gained a game. By the way, for the season, I didn't mention. I am now 16-14. You are 15-15. We are one game apart, or one pick apart. So it is neck and neck going into this week. And it was UF ranks 95th in the nation on third down conversion percentage at 37%, where Tigers are 108th in the nation in third down defense at 44.1%. UF will convert at 44% on third down. We did not at all. We came in at 33.3. I kept it. You pitched it. And yeah, you got that one right. So, and yet we won the game, even though I thought that would make us lose the
Wow.
game, and it did
Yeah.
not. So again, things that make you go, on that one. So
Oh, yeah.
time for Keep It or Pitch It this week. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Let's go. Okay. Ole Miss is ranked number two in the nation, averaging 365.7 yards per game of passing offense. Big number. Florida is ranked number 92 somehow in the nation in passing defense at 236.9, which I would think 236.9 would be better than 92nd in the nation for passing yards, but apparently not. Florida will hold Ole Miss under 300 yards passing this weekend. It's a little tough. What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you got?
It's in the swamp. I would love to keep it, but the main thing that I've got coming out of my head is the fact of they had a bye. They're going to prep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We're a little bit depleted in the secondary, right?
That's
We're
what's got
shifting, we're
me.
moving.
Yep.
And so on that basis, I will have to pitch it.
Yeah, I'm pitching it because of the depleted secondary. So they played very admirably this week,
Yep.
but this is a different animal. I don't like the matchups as well. Better receivers.
Yeah.
In a way better quarterback, not necessarily all the way better, but can be. Yeah, I'm pitching it as well. All right. Number 2, Ole Miss ranks number 16 in total defense, allowing 309.2 yards per game. It's kind of shocking to me that they're that high, but all right. Florida ranks number 80 in total offense at 378.9 yards per game. Florida will accumulate over 375 yards of total offense. Keep it or pitch it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I would like to think that we're going to hit 375. Although, are we going to be as efficient as we were against LSU and just finish with a measly, I don't know, 340 yards? So I am actually going to pitch it.
Oh, interesting. I'm surprised. So if you're pitching the first one and you're pitching this one, I don't think you're calling for a win here.
Hey, we've been able to win in more awkward, in weirder circumstances, obviously. So,
All right. I'm keeping this. I think we're going over this. DJ does incredible things. That's all I got for you. I'm all in. I'm a full believer. Now I will say their pass rush is ridiculous, so we are going to have to do a really good job. They're averaging 4.6 sacks per game, ladies and gentlemen. That's wow. That's crazy.
yeah.
So we are just below 3 now after this last game performance. They are at 4.6. Hello. So that is wild. So we are going to have to do a really good job pass protecting, because obviously DJ is still not going to be fully mobile, but hopefully his ability to be at least somewhat mobile is going to help us here, because we're going to need it, because that is an impressive number. Last but not least, so I am keeping it, though. I'm going to stick with that. Ole Miss and Florida currently rank 113 and 114 respectively in time of possession, averaging 27 minutes per game, basically equal. There's a couple seconds difference, but it's essentially the same. This means they are both capable of quick scores, as we know, right? Though Ole Miss does have the edge in that area. They have more quick scores than we do on the season, but I would argue that's because Lagway hasn't been the starter the whole season and things of that nature. So Florida will have more explosive plays than Ole Miss during the game this weekend? Now, this is an interesting one. What do you got?
This one, as you would say, is coin flippy for me.
Yep.
But back in the swamp, the first two I'm like, I'm gonna pitch. I don't know if we can get it, but that's gonna be the main thing that's gonna keep us in this game and get this crowd electrified again. So I'm actually gonna keep this one.
I like it. I think if we have any shot to win this, we have to win this, and I'm going to root for us to win this game. I don't know that we're going to win this game for the record. I think it's
Yeah.
probably less likely we win it than we don't. However, I'm keeping this because I think it's the DJ factor, man. He's just electric, and I am going to believe that he's going to do it. I'm not gonna not put faith in him. He's just too special. So I'm keeping it as well. So the only one we disagree on is the total offense. So we'll see what happens there. That'll be the defining one this week. So if we flip on that one, we are going to be tied up. Interesting. Going into the last game of the season. That could be, yeah. If you get that right and I don't, that'll be very interesting. We'll see what happens. All right. Sims notes very quickly. Not much here. Super weird. We went 8-2 against Ole Miss in the Sims. We do not use it as a predictive tool, as I've mentioned many times. However, as I've also mentioned, it's been very accurate at predicting the outcome of these games. It's only been wrong a couple of times. One time it was wrong was against Tennessee, and I would argue we should have won that game. So was it really wrong? I mean, technically, yeah, but kind of shouldn't have been. 8-2 is like, wow. The only other teams we've had that kind of margin against, we won definitively against. So kind of weird. I don't really know what to make of it. I'm going to be honest with you. And there really weren't trends in the numbers that I could find in a 10-game data set because I always run 10 Sims. Numbers were all over the place. There was no metric that really stood out between the wins and the two losses. I can't really point to anything. It's kind of interesting. I don't have something that I can pull and point to this week. I'm sorry. I wish I did. All I've got for you is we went 8-2. So we'll see what happens. First time that's happened all season. I have, and I looked at it from top to bottom. Randy and I talked about it before the pod started. We could not come up with a single thing. We went through every single metric you can imagine, and there's nothing. There is nothing that points to an indicator of any kind. So, TBD. If we win, the game is amazing. That's all I know how to say. And if we don't, then we can just throw it out the window for this week, I guess. But there you go. How about that? We'll leave it at that.
Fair enough.
All right. To that end, I just want to tie back again for anybody that's new this week. I was wearing that shirt around the game this week, so that's why I keep talking about potentially having new people listening. We do this purely for the enjoyment of Gator football, for the love and passion we have for it, and again, as you've mentioned throughout, the desire to share accurate information with everybody. We think that's really important and really try to do our best with that. So we hope you guys have listened or enjoyed listening to it as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you, as we do every week. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen to it. We really appreciate it. And like we said, we just really love doing it. So thanks very much. Anything else you want to close with, Randy, before we sign off here?
Yeah, before I sign off, if you just want to mention the next pod and the next episode.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it'll be next Monday after the game. We do one every Monday during the season. To do analysis of the previous week's game. So that's our cadence during the season, and then the off season we do one every 3 weeks. So that's our breakdown. But yeah, it'll be next Monday night. We'll record. We record them live, and then upload them from there. So it is a live recording that we're doing right now. We don't edit it. We don't do anything to it. I just record it and then post it to the web. So that's all there is to it.
I like to call it recording in the raw. Awesome, man. Well, B, thanks for the episode, and I'll go ahead and sign us off. And so wherever you are, whenever you may be listening, thank you for taking the time, and we will see you around, Gator Nation.